Hey everyone, welcome back to my channel. If you're new here, my name is Stephanie. I'm a registered dietitian and sport nutritionist. I work one-on-one with athletes of all ages and levels to make sure that they are eating to perform at their best. In today's video, I'm going to actually be going over how to use one of my meal guides. So these are meal guides that I make for my athletes, and also I've made one for myself now because we're getting back into the gym, training a little bit more, and looking to gain back some of that strength that I lost over the last couple of years and hopefully gain some of that muscle back. Now, your first question might be, okay, how do I get my hands on one of these meal guides? So I make these for my one-on-one clients, but I also sell them on my website just as a one-off. So if you are interested in just the meal guide, that's perfectly fine. It's a lower cost option to get that feedback of where your calories and macros should be without actually spending a lot of money on one-on-one sessions. The link to the website where you can get these or even take a look at them is below, so feel free to browse there. There's also a contact me, so if you do want any more questions answered about the meal guide, you can definitely send me a message through there or comment below. So without further ado, let's take a look into what my meal guide looks like, and I will take you through the process of how I'm planning my meals and snacks for the day. All right, let's go. All right, so this is your meal guide. The first page here, just a little title page, and then it goes through the top here. So this is going to be your total amounts of servings of each of those items, your protein, your carbs, and your fats that you need to have each day. And then they are set out in terms of your pre-workout, your breakfast, your lunch, your snack, your dinner, so that you know exactly how many of those servings you want to have at each meal. I probably would not move around the protein or the carbohydrates. The fats are a little bit more flexible, so if you find that, for example, for this lunchtime, I've set out 4 of these fats, but sometimes I might need them for an extra snack or I might need them for dinner, so I can definitely spread those out if I need to. Okay, so when we look at this, it's broken down into each meal and snack, and then you've got 3 of these boxes, so your protein, your carbs, and your extra fats. And then you've got some of the items that would be equal to one of those servings. So, your protein is roughly 20 grams of protein, your carbohydrates are about 15 grams of carbs, your fat is roughly 5 grams of fat for each of those servings. Unfortunately, with nutrition, you don't only get protein when you are eating something that is mostly protein. You don't only get carbs when you're only consuming something that has carbs in it, and fat sometimes doesn't only contain fat as well. Sometimes it does, but sometimes it doesn't. So this is where the back calculations from me come in, where I do account for the proteins having a little bit of extra fat in it. Your carb also has a little bit of protein and a little bit of extra fat in it. And then the fat is basically just your fat. So that's how I kind of do the calculations for these. And then it's really just a rough guideline as to what you might want to be having at each meal and snack to roughly get you to where you want to be in terms of those calories and macros without tracking on MyFitnessPal. So if you go through it, you can see that your protein, 1 scoop of protein powder, 2 eggs and egg whites would be a protein choice, or 1 cup of plain Greek yogurt or cottage cheese. And then you can look at what 1 serving of carbs would be. So a 1/4 cup of your dry oats, half a banana, 1 small fruit, 1 cup of cow's milk, or your beans and lentils will also contain some of those carbs as well. So about half a cup would be 1 serving. We also got our fat, so 1 tablespoon of hummus, or we've got nuts, almond or nuts or seeds, 1 teaspoon of oil, or a 1/4 of an avocado. If we are looking at our meats, so I've got that on this next page here. So if we're looking for more of a mealtime where we're having some of that chicken or salmon or tuna, we can roughly say that about 75 to 80 grams of raw meat here would roughly equal 1 protein choice, or 1 cup of edamame or tofu, or 1 cup of lentils would be roughly what we're looking for in terms of that protein. So the one thing I wanted to say about the vegetarian style of proteins is that we need to consider it, again, both a protein and a carbohydrate. So if we did 1 cup of lentils for our protein, we would also probably want to consider that 2 servings of carbohydrates as well. So then, you know, if we have a cup of lentils, that would be 2 carb choices there. So we have 2 left over. So we could do 2/3 of a cup of quinoa or brown rice with the lentils to make sure that we get that 4 servings of carbohydrates there. There's also in the back a whole extra list for different types of fats, different types of carbs, different kinds of proteins. So if you aren't really sure, you know, how to get some of the things that you want into this, there's also a large list at the back. So if you notice in there, the meat is measured in grams, your grains and starches are measured in cups, and then you've got your fats, which are usually measured in teaspoons or tablespoons. So this means that you're going to have to get out your tools to kind of measure some of these things until you can actually understand what 1 teaspoon or 1 tablespoon or 1 cup or half a cup looks like on your plate, so then you can kind of go from there just based on visual. The grains are always measured when they're cooked. The meat is actually measured when it's raw. So that's because a lot of times when you cook meat, the water can evaporate, and so depending on how well done the meat is, that weight can change, but those macronutrients don't. So if we're measuring it raw, that might be the best place to do that. You can use a weigh scale, something like this. If you do not have one of these, you don't need to buy one, especially because on the packages, which we will take a look at, you can look at how much is in there and then make the division by that. So here I have some of my chicken that I'm going to be cooking for the week. So if we bring this up real close, you can see that it's about 940 grams, I think this one was. So if we consider that I need roughly 75 grams of meat in a meal to get about 20 grams of protein, then I'm going to take that 940 grams, divide it by 75, and roughly this whole thing is going to give me about 11 to 12 servings of protein. So I can either, you know, chop each of these up into 3, so there's 4 of them. So if I roughly chop them in thirds, that's going to give me 12 servings, so then I can equal it out that way, or I can cook them all and just kind of either shred it all and put it into 12 equal containers so that I know how much at each meal that I need to have. So that's how you get away with not having a scale, but also being decently accurate with your estimations of how much meat you want to have at each meal to make sure that you are matching what you need to have at each meal and snack. So hopefully that was a good baseline as to how you can put your meals and snacks together based on that meal guide. I am going to go into more detail of how we can look at a mixed meal and make sure that we are counting appropriately for how many carb choices am I getting in this meal, how many proteins, etc. am I getting from each meal, so that it makes it a little bit easier for you when you're trying to do this if you're eating a lasagna or a casserole, etc. So that is it for this video. Thank you so much for sticking all the way through the end, and hopefully you found it helpful to make sure that you know how to use your meal guide. If you do have any questions, put them below and I will get to those. And I will see you in the next one. Bye!